Hello and welcome to another edition of the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin.
That's my dad.
How are you?
We are here talking about the top 5 worst MLB dream teams or MLB franchises of all time. We just finished up the top 5 best, and now we're talking about the bottom of the barrel. We're not really trying to no shade to any of these bottom teams. They're not the worst teams ever. Obviously, they're professional organizations. Some obviously are young. That's what the big thing is here. When you compare, hey, who's the best baseball team ever? And you're comparing people against the Yankees, it's already an unfair game.
Correct.
So you're really looking, unfortunately, we're going to be looking at a lot of young franchises, a lot of expansion teams, and probably a lot of teams that haven't won a World Series. Now, just because you won a World Series doesn't make you, infallible, doesn't make that you can't be on this list. In fact, I do have 2 World Series winners on my bottom 5 teams, and there's 6 teams that have never won a World Series. So we'll talk about that just because you have a World Series ring doesn't mean that dream team is going to beat some of these other teams. So think of head-to-head, let's talk about, neither of these teams are on my list, but the Pirates and the Orioles. Who's going to win in that? And that's how we kind of rank them. Dad, I thought we'd do the opposite here, a little inverse thing. We start with our best of the worst, our 26th team, and then go 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th.
Okay.
Rather than be at the bottom
Okay,
first.
so we're going with the number 1 on our list, and then we're going to rank.
Number 1 would be your best worst team.
Got it.
And then your 5th is your worst.
I got it.
All right. Dad, tell me your best worst team.
Toronto.
Oh, with 2 World Series wins,
Yes.
right? Okay.
But if you look at what we did for the...
Well, let me look what I did for Toronto. But yes.
Well, let me tell you what I did for
Check out our Toronto Blue Jays podcast because I'm already mad about this one. Go ahead.
If you think about their lineup and everything else, they have a lot of weaknesses. No real star appears in that Toronto breakdown. And from what my memory told me, Toronto had the most mediocre team of all-stars that I can remember. And I thought that they were, there.
So mine consisted of Roberto Alomar as a Hall of Famer, Paul Molitor as a DH, Roy Halladay as a starter, Bobby Cox managing. I'm sure you chose Gaston. Tony Fernandez, Josh Donaldson, George Bell, Carlos Delgado, a lot of all-stars. So that's saying something.
Remember you said last one.
I know. It's your list. I know. So
Yes.
I don't know what your list consists of. My dream team, I would have not chose the Blue Jays. So we'll go back. I definitely will be going after this podcast ends. I'm immediately going to our podcast on the Blue Jays to see what people you chose.
Yeah, they're it's like the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Very Good, Hall of Fame. They're good players. They're not great players.
I'm sorry, Toronto. Listen, we're in America, so because of the border thing, you can't come after us. I'm really glad about that. We're in Maryland. Let me know your address if you want to take some hate mail out on this guy.
Sure.
So my my best worst MLB dream team are the Washington Nationals. Now the reason being is they're the newest team. I don't look at so when we do our dream teams, we're not including any Expos here. It's only 2005 or newer.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, most of my dream team really did consist of players on the World Series team.
Mm-hmm.
They have a great pitcher. I chose Strasburg over Scherzer as my dream team pitcher on this one.
Yeah.
Still a great team, but I think maybe your argument here is that there's just not enough horses. Where they're like 25-man roster, it's weak. Not the greatest catching situation with the Nationals.
Yeah.
The Nationals are a very beatable team, but again, they are just too new for me to choose. For example,
Right.
Brewers have never won a World Series, but the Brewers have so much longevity of just talent on their team that I still think the Brewers are a better team overall than the 15-year Washington Nationals. You're playing a teenager versus a veteran.
I agree. That's good logic there.
Okay. So dropping next, this is where it's my only time that I went with a little bit of age on my list. Everything else is an expansion team. But I went with the San Diego Padres.
Interesting.
So San Diego Padres, I'm a big Tony Gwynn fan. But Tony Gwynn carries that team. Yeah. I really focused on pitching on my overall list of 5, with the exception of Strasburg. I think every best pitcher along the next 4 teams is very beatable and would not be a dream team pitcher on any other team. Padres pitcher that I chose was Jake Peavy. Not the best option.
Right.
He's going to get
flamed out.
Again, if you put the Padres versus the Pirates, the Padres versus the Brewers, we'll keep using them as an analogy. Mm-hmm. Brewers would light them up. So I just don't think the Padres have enough depth to really carry themselves as to be a dominant dream team. I think they're a very beatable and, again, one of the worst.
Yeah. I had the Rockies.
I'll get to my Rockies, but so why, I'm very curious why you think the Rockies I think definitely are in the bottom 5. Why are they above maybe some of your other choices.
I think pitching. You can't be a good pitcher
That's true.
in Colorado.
I agree with that.
And the day-to-day lineup is okay, but again, if you really think about the stars, Arenado is one of them.
Yep.
But then after that, it drops down a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
So they were very good with the home run situation, and they beat you 12-9 or they lost 14-10.
Yeah.
Big
ERAs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think one, maybe it's the altitude. Two is they just can't retain pitching, and they rely on offense to carry them through. And if you don't have a great offensive lineup, Colorado doesn't do well.
Agreed. I'm going to talk about the Rockies later. So everything you honestly said, I'm going to say just more extreme. So I'm not going to obviously fault you for any of that stuff. We haven't lined up on a match yet, obviously. Do the Nats or Padres appear in your list at all?
No.
Interesting. So we're really opposite so far.
Yeah.
Blue Jays and Rockies. I agree with the Rockies being in the bottom tier. Okay. Who is your third? Who's getting your bronze for worst dream
Tampa
team?
Bay.
Okay, again, going to be agreeing with that, but not the same level. Okay, tell me why Tampa Bay. Just
again,
age.
Yeah, that could be a huge part of it, and just stars.
Yeah.
I mean, they've always had a really low payroll. They've done the best they could with that payroll. They've surprised a lot of teams. They've really reached the playoffs much more than people expected. They've had great managers over the years, which I think helps tremendously. But if you really think their lineup they put out there doesn't compare to the other great lineups, and again, I think age has a lot to do with it.
I don't think either of us chose any. I don't think there is a Ray that's a Hall of Famer. I know Wade Boggs played for the Rays, but I don't think we have a 3-year minimum to be on our dream teams, and I think he only did 2 with the Rays.
Yeah, I think.
So I don't think there's ever been a Ray Hall of Famer that's
No.
went into the Hall of Fame
No.
as a
Not
Hall
yet.
of Famer. I don't. Yeah, not yet. Is probably the best way to say that. So I agree that the Rays are again in that bottom tier, but I think there's one team that's better than them. But don't worry, I'm coming back around to the Rays and the Rockies. So my third team, this is where I know who you're going to say, and I'm going to just show you my dream team, so I'm going to get that ready. So my bronze star right there is going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now you're going to say, what about Randy Johnson? What about Randy Johnson?
What about Randy Johnson?
So he's it. In my mind, he's their team. You have this fantastic, truly dominant starter, but then who's your infielders? Where's the depth? Who is your 2 after Randy Johnson?
Yeah.
Who is he eventually going to have to give up the ball to in the bullpen?
Yeah. One championship season and then nothing.
Right. So again, I just think that the Diamondbacks, again, a very new team from '98. Hopefully this grows, but that's the one name, and they have a World Series, but that's it.
Yeah.
They just don't have enough horses really to be that great. And yes, I do think the Nationals and Padres are better than the Diamondbacks, and I think they could win in a head-to-head matchup versus this hypothetical situation we keep imagining with dream teams. But yeah, Arizona I thought was also, sorry if you're a Diamondback fan, but just a really extremely boring franchise to talk about.
True.
Where some of these players weren't even all-stars. Like Steven Drew was my choice of shortstop, and I don't think he ever became an all-star.
He ended up being a utility guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Miguel Montero was an all-star, but he ended his career with like a 194 average.
With the Cubs.
Yeah, so these aren't dominant players, and they get smoked by some of these other teams. Even honestly in this list that the Padres or Nationals, I think the Padres would beat the Diamondbacks by many runs, especially with Gwynn.
Yeah.
Gwynn could hit Randy. He did. They face each other.
Yeah.
So I think that is my third team. So you have Arizona in your bottom two?
I don't.
Jesus, this is getting different. Okay. Who's your second from the bottom?
White Sox.
What? Okay, that's just so biased. All right, now I've never been more angry on any of your picks on the show. The White Sox. He's a Cubs fan. He's from Chicago. He had to go see White Sox games growing up. This has become personal and not objective, Dad.
No, think about.
Defend yourself.
I will.
Oh
if
my
you
God.
Think about their lineup that we chose for their all-star lineup.
Yeah.
It is riddled with a lot of mediocre players.
Shoeless Joe Jackson's on that team.
A great player. Great player. Love
my
Shoeless
White
Joe.
Sox.
But at the same time, they look at their infield. Their infield is very mediocre.
No, it's not.
It is, in my opinion.
No, it's not. Okay, well, again, we're going to go back to the Blue Jays and the White Sox.
Okay.
My thing, because somebody came prepared with reasoning and defending. I don't see your thing. My dream team for the White Sox: Carlton Fix, Jose Abreu, Nelly Fox, Luis Aparicio. 3 out of 4 Hall of Famers so far. Robin Ventura, Shoeless Joe Jackson should be in the Hall of Fame. Johnny Mosteal, Maglio Ordonez, Frank Thomas, one of the greatest DHs and first baseman ever. I get it with the pitching. Mark Burley is not the best pitcher, but he did throw several complete games, 10 shutouts in his career.
And a no-hitter.
And a no-hitter. Again, he's not the best. He's not a Hall of Famer, but I'm still okay with him. Hoyt Wilhelm and Keith Folk in your bullpen.
And that's over 100 years, don't
It's 120 years, yeah.
Right. But, I mean, you really look at a very mediocre team over those years. I mean, they have some players that are great, but at the same time, the infield, you take, Robbins, he's not going to make anyone...
6 Gold Gloves. Robin Ventura has 6 Gold Gloves.
You take the top 10 third baseman of all time, he's not even scratching the surface.
Listen, I agree with that, but... all right, so you're saying the White Sox are a worse team than the Nationals, who's only been around for 15 years. That's blasphemy. You're putting them ahead of the Diamondbacks. You put them behind the Rays and behind the Rockies.
Yes.
I'm really starting to question your logic right now. I really want the comment section to blow up on this one because I want your opinions. You're taking risks. Good thing you don't live in Chicago anymore. I mean...
it's okay. I don't go to South Side.
The White Sox probably be in my top 10, top 12 best teams of all time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a very mediocre team...
They're not mediocre.
During their entire 100 years...
We're talking about the dream team.
I know that.
Choice of dream team.
I know that, but I'm just saying that they, have not had even a lot of peaks and valleys. They've always stayed pretty much... 500 team and all that stuff. They've gone through a lot of changes. I just think that they just don't come up to say anything as star power. Yeah. And Fisk was at the end of his career when he was with the White Sox.
Yeah, but he was still in the team long enough to make our dream team.
Correct. But he was a shell of himself compared to...
Now we're taking shots at the players. Jose Abreu just got the MVP award this year.
He's a great player.
And I believe Jose Abreu should get Hall of Fame votes, if not in the Hall of Fame.
Great signing.
And then you got Kornoko off your bench. But okay. All right. You got Collins at second base too. Okay. I got to move on. So the clearest answer to the second here is Tampa Bay Rays. No World Series wins. They've only been a team since '98. We talked about them not having any Hall of Famers, despite a litany of Hall of Famers in the White Sox team. The Rays. I don't know if I need to say more. So you said the second overall team was the White Sox. I say the Rays. The Rays dream team versus the White Sox dream team. The White Sox win like 30-0. You're saying the Rays beat the White Sox? You're saying your Tampa Bay Toby Hall catching versus Carlton Fisk catching.
Oh, you can do individual, but at the same time, I think Tampa Bay has better pitching.
So you would put what, Price versus Burley, and you would put money on Price?
Yeah.
Burley at his prime. I don't know.
Price in his prime?
Well, then, okay, Burley doesn't do well. Then you got Hoyt Wilhelm coming out, and you got Keith Folk. And what do you got, Jake McGee? You don't have a lot of star power in the Rays bullpen.
Then you go to modern day with Snell and a couple other ones. Glasnow?
They haven't made the dream team yet,
I know
buddy.
that, but I'm just saying.
What we have as our dream teams, Chicago White Sox or Tampa Bay Rays. White Sox mop the floor with Tampa Bay Rays. Let's talk about the worst, because my worst is the Colorado Rockies. So it was a simple thing for me. No World Series win. What I found interesting here's a piece of information, facts for you, since we're getting so opinionated. No Rockies manager has ever had a positive winning percentage. Now, plenty of Rockies seasons have gone into the 500s. They've gone 538. They've had a winning season, but they keep that manager for the next season and they go down again. So no Rockies manager over the time as they've managed has had a winning record. That's a really bad ball club. You don't have a winning ball club there. Arenado is one of my absolute favorite players as a third baseman. I really do think he should be considered in, honestly, the top 5 third baseman of all time.
Next year.
Yeah, he's a fantastic third baseman.
Yeah, I agree.
And
defensively as well.
Yeah. He's never not won a Gold Glove.
Yeah.
And they have some great offensive pieces. However, talking about pitching earlier, my pitching choice for them was Ubaldo Jimenez. And Ubaldo is not standing up against any of these other pitchers. The Rockies won't be able to beat against Johnson. Despite their offense, you're not going to get hits if you're the Rockies off of Johnson. The Rays, I do have Price, but again, you compare Price versus Ubaldo Jimenez. Padres, Jake Peavy, still better than Ubaldo Jimenez. And the Nationals, Strasburg is consistently 100% better than Ubaldo Jimenez. So Rockies would just find themselves in too much of a hole to come back from in these games. Sure, it'll be a softball game, 14-10, but they'll lose. Rockies are the worst MLB dream team ever.
I have Miami.
With 2 World Series wins,
Right.
with Miguel Cabrera, with
Think about the rest of the lineup.
Okay, Miguel Cabrera. I have Hanley Ramirez, Derek Lee, Charles Johnson as catcher, or JT Real Muto. I could probably put Luis Castillo in at second base. Outfield's insane. Stanton, Yelich, Ozuna. Yeah, I'm cool with it. Yeah, this is a much better team.
But did all those...
Versus who?
Did Yelich stay with him all 3 years?
Yep.
Okay.
More than 3 years.
And then their pitching staff's not good.
I agree with you in pitching. However, Dontrell Willis in his prime had 21 win game season.
Yeah, I think that was only 1 or 2 times he was a really great pitcher. Then his arms fell.
With the pitching, so the Marlins probably my 6th or 7th team, but I like them enough. Again, Miguel Cabrera, a young Miguel Cabrera that was still playing third base.
Yeah, I mean, he was a hitting machine.
So why? So just because pitching. So that means you're saying the Miami Marlins have the worst pitching in MLB history. Worse than the Rockies.
Well, again, I think you have to look at stadiums.
Okay.
I think the Rockies have such a poor pitching staff because of the environment and the atmosphere and the altitude and all that stuff. Jimenez made a name for himself because he was one of the few winning pitchers.
He threw a no-hitter at Coors Field, yeah.
That came out of Colorado. I think when the Orioles traded for him, he was like, 14-8, 16-9. For a Colorado pitcher to have a winning record was unheard of. So I think that's the reason why. So a lot has to do with altitude and everything else. But I think Miami just didn't have any consistent star power over the years. And when they did get star power, they let them go.
So you're saying the Rockies beat Miami Marlins?
At what stadium?
Well, that shouldn't matter. Like, if you're the better team.
I'm just thinking that would be a nice game, depending on who's on the hill. I think it's a tough game.
So you're saying out of Florida, Rays beat Miami?
Out of Florida will win.
Okay, so then why would you choose? So why would you choose? If they're your worst team, if Miami's your worst team, and you just said Florida beats Tampa, why isn't Tampa your worst team?
Because I was looking at just overall teams and how they would do against the competition over the years.
No, we're just doing a one-game thing or a series or whatever you want to say. So the Rockies, if we played 162 games, the Rockies, of course, are going to win some games. It's just like in any other season. However, if you put that a best of 7, Rockies win 0 best of 7 versus my 29 other dream teams. Tampa Bay Rays only beat the Rockies. Diamondbacks only beat the Rays and the Rockies. Padres beat the Diamondbacks. Rays, Rockies, you see how this goes. I'm saying the Marlins, due to 2 World Series wins, can scrap and win enough games to beat all these teams. I like the Nats a whole bunch. I'd rather have the Marlins dream team versus the Nats dream team.
Okay.
So I'm just saying we have a very highly contested list here. What is your 5 again?
Okay, the 5, Toronto,
Blue Jays,
Colorado,
Rockies,
Tampa Bay,
Rays,
White Sox, Miami. We have 3 of the same 5 teams.
No, we don't have Toronto.
You had
I have Rockies and Rays. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got 2 out of 5.
That's not a lot. That's not a lot.
I think if you look at the worst teams, there's a lot of qualifications go in there. I think a lot of teams go in the top 10 to get the final 5. I'm thinking a lot of them were, 6, 7, 8 right there. My opinion. Because they kind of go back and forth. Consistency was a big part of my best teams.
I agree, and I think inconsistency is also a large part of your bad teams.
That's one in there. And Miami was bad for a long time.
I just think we're getting away from, hey, this is my hypothetical dream team of the history of a team. Here's who I would pick, cherry pick from each year, cherry pick from each stardom and all that stuff. And here's the team I would field. The Marlins that I selected in my dream team, maybe you selected a slightly different dream team, are better than all of my worst 5. I would even put the Mariners maybe as 6. Maybe put the Brewers as 7. Because, again, Brewers don't have a championship. Mariners don't have a championship. Maybe the Rangers as well.
Yeah.
I really think the Marlins are better than a lot of those teams. Their pieces, yes. The center fielder of the Mariners. Griffey's, of course, better than, I think it was Ozuna that I had for the Marlins.
But think of Hall of Famers. There's a lot of Mariners that are going to be in the Hall of Fame.
On my list, I had Egger and Griffey. I didn't choose Randy from my list.
Woo.
I chose King Felix. And again, it's just such a young team that I would not feel comfortable I still think the Marlins are better than the Mariners. Marlins would be like 12th worst overall, despite their age. I really do like the Marlins teams. How good they have been able to be in only 23 years.
Right, and the things that I always held against Miami, especially when they won the World Series, they broke up the team just as soon as they won.
Yeah.
To me, that wasn't a great thing, and that probably went into my decision making. They had great players, and they got rid of them as soon as they got great. And a lot of it had to do with money.
Yeah, it did. But if you're a small market, that's sort of what you have to do.
I know. And I think about all the small markets we picked in the bottom 5. Think about that for a minute.
Arizona's a small market, in my opinion. Tampa is. Colorado is. San Diego is. Not the greatest attendance. Washington is, I think, a great market, just a new team.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it was tough to pick the bottom 5.
We definitely talked way longer about our worst 5 than our best 5. But we can also agree that anyone on our top 5 can beat anyone on our bottom 5. Obviously, that's the main thing here. Yeah. Let us know in the comments. We'll put on, again, we'll make it all nice and fun in the description who our bottom 5 are. But what a debate. Yeah. What a debate. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for tolerating us. We had some of the biggest and best, of course, the best reactions for the worst teams. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for being patient and hopefully having fun with us too.
Be safe.